We're midway through Season 1 here, where the series is shifting from the alien planet of the week to more world-building episodes. Thor's Hammer gave us our first peek into the Asgards, followed by Torment of Tantalus, which gave us our first hints about several alien races, including those that set up the gate. The following episode, Bloodlines, gives us information about the Jaffa, and naturally that makes this a Teal'c episode. He's here observing these hooded guys that we'd seen on Chulak, the planet where everyone was brought to be deemed worthy of being implanted with Gould, and more importantly, to give us our first and last full frontal nudity scene. Thank God they stopped before Torment of Tantalus. However, we quickly figure out that this is a dream because they're putting a worm in a boy's Jaffa kangaroo pouch. But then the boy is Teal'c, and let me fix that. Better, don't want to get anyone fired while watching this at work. Teal'c shouts Ryak over and over, and is still shouting it when he wakes up in the SGC infirmary, where he learns that their attempts to replace the Gould in him with the drug has failed, so they had to put the worm back in.
So the drug failed?
Yes, but it proves that the Gould is Teal'c's immune system.
Either that or our drug is actually just rat poison. But the upshot is that they won't have the worm to study, but Teal'c has a suggestion. Let's go to Chulak and get one. The only downside being it's mind-bogglingly dangerous. General Hammond can't authorize anything like that because that's our current SG-1 theme. Hammond says no, and then yes. We had it in Torment of Tantalus. Before that was Abyss. If for a guy everybody on the show loves, they're constantly pissed off that he won't let them have any fun. So Jack goes to see what might be up with Teal'c. Something obviously is up with Teal'c, or he wouldn't be trying to summon Ob Nixilis to this plane of reality. Teal'c finally explains that he has a wife and a son, Ryak, back on Chulak. A problem because he'd sworn that he had no ties there. Because now they don't trust him, whereas if he told them the truth, then they'd know that he might be compromised and thus not trust him. Lesson learned. The reason Teal'c is anxious about this is that Ryak has reached the age where this would likely happen, the whole worm thing, and he wants to put a stop to it. Well, time for round 2 then, if General Hammond says no while they offer their compelling argument. Come on! This technique fails so badly that Hammond takes O'Neill into his office to say, please stop acting like I'm an idiot and tell me your actual reason. So O'Neill finally comes clean, and just in time for Teal'c to suit up and ready the gate to head there anyway, reasoning that he doesn't risk anyone's life but his own. And of course all of theirs, since he knows all there is to know about Stargate Command and their defenses. But Hammond isn't unreasonable. He understands why Teal'c lied, and why he had to do this here too. So he agrees to the mission to make sure that Teal'c doesn't wind up being tortured by Apophis. If he's tortured now, he won't have anything to do in the later seasons but grow hair. So, disguised as priests, except for Teal'c obviously, they return, with a greeting party waiting, and curious about Teal'c keeping his visor closed. It's broken.
Perhaps I can help.
Number 3.
At least wash the eel juice off your hands first. Having bluffed their way past this group, it's time to switch back to their more practical gear and visit Teal'c's house. Oh shit, did you leave the iron on? You left the iron on, didn't you? After Apophis finished redecorating the place, he left a mark announcing this was the home of a traitor. So, the neighbors are pissed off. That's going to ruin the property values right there. But Teal'c can finish rooting through the wreckage for the insurance papers later. An old man gets the jump on them. But he's the one that Teal'c had mentioned earlier, Braytak, who also knows that the Gould are false gods. Plus he's Teal'c's teacher, so ways of the warrior, Obi-Wan stuff, that's going to be his thing. And he's a tough crowd. Teal'c introduces them as great warriors, but Braytak gives them a look that would make R. Lee Ermey feel self-conscious. O'Neill tries to get him to lighten up a bit, but Braytak takes that as a challenge, and to prove it, tries to sucker punch O'Neill with the staff.
Okay.
My hip! Well, you pass Kenobi's test, or rather, the first test. When he learns Braytak's over 100 years old... Yep, and I still got my mojo. Still, this mutual ass-whooping aside, we now have the time to get down to business. Ryak and his mom, who are outcasts now that their dad is labeled as a traitor, and their house accidentally caught fire in 5 different places. So O'Neill sends Daniel and Carter to go watch the gate while he, Teal'c, and Braytak handle this.
If we are discovered, you will be brought before Apophis along with us.
Well, we'll just have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
No.
The bridge is too well guarded.
Oh, in that case, let's just go home. Braytek basically takes the lead, and while O'Neill offers the occasional respectful objection, he doesn't get into a pissing match over it. He only makes a point of it if Braytek starts treating him like a subordinate. O'Neill possesses a special self-confidence. He's certain of himself, his ability, and his authority, to such a degree that he doesn't feel the need to exert it unless the situation demands it, yet not allow that to lead to any kind of arrogance, probably for the same reason as his self-effacing humor. But of course, this is Teal'c's story, who has been seeing the high price he's paid for his stand for Jaffa freedom. His family now lives in downtown Shitville, population the damned. But he's at least arrived before the priest can complete the ritual and politely asks him not to do it, and the priest politely tries to stab him for that. The struggle is interrupted by Teal'c, Teal'c's wife, though all this manages to do is accidentally kill the Gould larva intended for Ryak. Oh, and this. I've got to talk to Hammond and see if I can get paid by the shallow grave. Teal'c and his wife argue over this. You know how couples are when it comes to how to raise their kids or what to do about the accidental homicide. Both have a point. She and Ryak have to live with the stigma of what Teal'c has done, and Teal'c is right that the Gould are false gods that need to be overthrown. He's unhappy that she would try to prove their loyalty to Apophis, and she's unhappy that he would abandon them to this fate. To make things worse, Ryak is sick. That's why he was being joined. O'Neill identifies it as scarlet fever and has something to help treat it in the short term, but they're going to need to bring him back in order to cure him. Meanwhile, Daniel and Carter come across the annual St. Anubis Day parade, all to bring a container of some fluid, which they dump into the tank full of Gould larvae. They're not being guarded. As Daniel notes, there's no reason anyone on this planet would steal or harm them. So, this is their lucky break. Carter snags one and puts it in the thermos to enjoy later, but then Daniel plans to kill the rest.
Just that every single one of these infant Goulds will one day take a human life. And all I have to do is...
If we kill them when they're as vulnerable as they are right now, we'd be no better than the Goa'uld.
I'm not so sure I'd agree with that. If you planted a bomb in Apophis' throne room and waited until his Gould entourage shows up and then blow them all away, it's not like they'd be any more capable of fighting back than the ones in this tank. They would be just as helpless in the face of your attack. And it's not like these are innocent children. Their race memory ensures that from birth, they are programmed to be the enemy of humanity, to believe in their right to enslave us culturally, and in some cases biologically, and that they will be a weapon of war in the meantime. In fact, I'll just say that we know that the one Samantha shoved in that thermos, that one's going to gloat over the painful and dishonorable execution of Teal'c's father just for the sake of gloating over it. And given that this is half a season after Daniel lost his wife to a worm, almost certainly from this very tank, well...
I'm really having a hard time accepting Daniel just did something wrong. Empathy for those who are different than us is an important trait to have, but you have to be careful not to cross the line into anthropomorphism. This is not being done because they're different. It's being done because they're dangerous.
Logical?
Perfectly.
Back at the rendezvous point, Ryak has stopped breathing, so with it looking like they're not going to make it there in time, Teal'c, in a moment of irony, takes his own larva out and implants it within Ryak himself, after all the trouble he went to ensure that he wouldn't be implanted with a larva. Kids, huh? You try to stop them from making the same mistakes you do, but soon they're getting implanted with worms just like you were at their age. It's just a matter of time before the kid's well enough to travel, but unfortunately it's also just a matter of time until Teal'c bites the big one. That's when Daniel and Carter finally arrive after fighting off some Jaffa, during which Daniel's MRE was tragically lost before he could try feeding it to their couple Gould. But hey, that means we can give that to Teal'c and save him. Yay! Sure, it means we don't have one for study, but that's okay. We can just go back and get another... Oh, right. So they put it in. That look, you'd think it was going through his butt or something. Well, they'll have to hurry. The Jaffa know they're there now, and as a galactic power with spaceships, laser weapons, teleportation technology, and other assorted trinkets, who knows what means they could have to thwart our heroes. Like a horn. Well, the Gould are protective of their technology. We know that. I mean, giving the Jaffa ray guns is one thing. Giving them radios, who knows how that could be used against their masters. Well, obviously they need to leave, and Ryak and Teal'c are going to be left behind now because because we really can't have them crapping our style back in Stargate Command. So Teal'c tells her to blame him for the priest, to say that Teal'c tried to steal her son away, but she got him back. So, of our 3-point mission, bring back Teal'c's family, acquire a Goa'uld for study, and make contact with those who might join them in the fight against Apophis, we've met with failure, and found a 133-year-old man. Though Braytek's a pretty good find. Thanks to him, the gate's cleared and they can head home.
What will you do? When the priests come to, they'll tell Apophis that you betrayed them.
I suppose. I will cross that bridge when I come to it.
Nice callback, but you're kind of already on the other side of that bridge, Obi-Wan. But whatever he does, things will work out because no more is said on it, and that's the end of the episode. Bloodlines tries to cover a lot of ground, establishing that Teal'c has a family, getting permission to go, introducing numerous characters, and having some subplots too. It's a bit of a weaker episode compared to the series standard, but for Season 1 it's pretty strong, and with all the information established it qualifies as a must-see. It didn't seem quite as smart as the show would eventually get. The threats were rather unimposing, and because it covered so much there wasn't much room to cover the bits as thoroughly. Giving Braytek and Draok a bit more time interacting with Teal'c would have helped. The positives, though, are that it's well-paced, the character dynamics that we do get are solid, and the chance to flesh Teal'c's life out a bit was a success. It could have been better, but Bloodlines does get the job done.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
I serve the SGC under a General Hammond.
So this Hammond is...
Just a man. Very good, very bald man from Texas.